had been away when the news broke.
The first thing, of course, I did was ring him to say, what the hell is this news? Is it a lie? And he said, no. So I said, you know, have you gone mad? What are you doing this for?
New Year's Day, 1991. Ever since I made my compromise with the Muslim scholars on Christmas Eve, I've been feeling sick. Sick at heart and in my stomach. This isn't me. It isn't me. I speak to my sister. She says, what have you done? Have you gone mad? One of the mullahs I met with is on TV vilifying homosexuals. One of the scholars I met with has written an article saying it's okay to slap your wife if she is disobedient. What have I done indeed? I repeat my reasons over and over. I wanted ordinary Muslims to know I wasn't their enemy. I wanted to argue the need for a better, more open, less repressive Muslim society, and thought I could do it better from inside the room. It all sounds like nonsense. It sounds like self-justification. This is the worst moment of my life.
Sometime later, Rushdi announced his flirtation with Islam was over.
The Japanese translator of Salman Rushdi's novel The Satanic Verses has been stabbed to death. The body of Professor Hitoshi Igarashi was found at his university near Tokyo.
The translator's murder followed a frenzied assault on the Japanese publisher and the near-fatal stabbing of the Italian translator of the novel. For his own safety and for the sake of the British hostages, Rushdi was advised by the government to make less noise. But the hostage issue would soon be resolved. In March, Roger Cooper had been unexpectedly released. Then in August, John McCarthy was freed. 3 months later, the last remaining British hostage, Terry Waite, finally arrived home.
I can't say that I, would hold him responsible in any way for my being kept. He didn't kidnap me, and I do actually myself believe that people should be free, within sort of reasonable bounds, to write what they wish. But clearly, this was one of those events, as they say, where the unforeseen consequences of a certain action actually did impinge on me.
The hostages' horrific ordeal was over. But there was no end in sight for the man living in fear for his life on British soil.
The government increasingly allowed it to be understood that they felt that some accommodation should be reached. By accommodation, clearly what is meant was compromise. So it became gradually clear that they would really wish the whole thing to go away. And that was what prompted the second major phase of the campaign, which was to take it international. Ladies and gentlemen, Salman Rushdie.
With the ever-present security by his side, Rushdi would frequently emerge from hiding to press his case in the centres of power. But the high-profile trips sparked renewed threats on his life, and there were other attacks.
A Norwegian publisher whose company translated Salman Rushdi's book, The Satanic Verses, has been shot and seriously wounded.
William Nygaard narrowly survived the assassination attempt. But in another act of terrorism linked to the book, 37 people died in an arson attack on a hotel in Turkey.
Iran has made it clear that the death sentence imposed on Salman Rushdie over his novel The Satanic Verses will not be lifted.
Rushdi was now meeting privately with Foreign Office officials to discuss his case.
There is a moment here when we're trying to galvanize Europe into action, and there's vast sympathy out there. where they say, why is your government being so silent? Why is it one never hears a British minister speak up on this issue? Why is it the British government keeps its mouth shut when you're asking us to make a noise?
Well, let me try and answer that. I mean, anybody who has been dealing at all closely with the subject of relations between the European community and Iran knows that the British have actually stood in the way of what quite a lot of other people wanted, which was an improvement, what we call a contractual relationship, which means an agreement between Brussels and Tehran. So I can give you a categorical assurance that actually the British have stood at times alone, in fact, against
I know you said that to me before.
Well, I've had to repeat that 2 or 3 times since we've been discussing it recently in Brussels.
The feeling was that the government had played it low-key up till then, but this didn't seem to be working. There wasn't any decrease in the level of threats coming from Tehran, and so the decision was taken to up the ante.
After 4 years in hiding, Rushdi had his first official meeting with a government minister.
Hello. Well, I just think I should say that was a very, very positive meeting. I think it was symbolically very important to be at the Foreign Office at last. And we were told by the government that they had decided to make a very substantial change of policy away from a softly approach and in favor of a much higher profile position on this issue.
That meeting was quickly followed by a visit to number 10 for his first talks with the Prime Minister, John Major. Within months, the Foreign Office official Michael Burton went to Tehran to hold the first high-level talks with the Iranians on the affair.
What they said was that they would not send any commandos, as they put it, to target Salman Rushdie. As regards the fatwa, for technical reasons it could not be lifted because it was a lawfully imposed interpretation. So what I was saying was, that's good, but it's not enough.
It would take another 4 years of campaigning and a change of government both in London and Tehran before the deadlock would be broken.
Voters in Iran have elected a relatively moderate cleric as the country's new president. In a surprise result, Mohammad Khatami overcame the hardliners who'd controlled Iran since the revolution in
It gave a new impetus and a new momentum to those within the regime who wanted to find a way out. And it also gave more of a momentum to people, obviously, in Europe and in Britain. But those who were, quote, we would describe them as moderates, had the upper hand, and therefore they ran with it, and there was a political will.
One day I came home and my telephone answering machine was literally buzzing. And so I sort of picked up the messages, and almost before I could do that, the phone rang again. It was a newspaper reporter from one of the press agencies, sort of saying that they'd understood that the fatwa had been repealed. And I said, what? What are you talking about? And they said, yes, it happened in New York, you know, just 20 minutes ago or whatever it was. So I called Salman, of course, and he knew nothing about it.
After months of secret negotiations between British and Iranian officials at the United Nations, a deal had finally been sealed on the fatwa. Francis de Souza and Rushdi were summoned to the Foreign Office the following morning to watch a live broadcast from New York.
The government of the Islamic Republic of Iran has no intention, nor is it going to take any action whatsoever to threaten the life of the author of the Satanic verses or anybody associated with his work.
I almost couldn't hear the words, you know, because I was so sort of nervous, and also trying to select in my mind those